ice, velvet. Ooh, God bless me. All right. As we wind down here, shout out to Kirby. This is Velvet by Kirby, and I love this song. And I just thought we'd start off with some tunes, get us on the right vibe before I get started, So let's get started. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. This is episode 2. I'm so excited. I wanted to start this episode off by saying thank you so much to everybody who reached out to me following episode 1. Like, everything you guys said to me just was so motivational and sweet and kind, and it just made me feel more in tune with this journey of starting this podcast. And I'm just so grateful for all of you, because this is exactly what I wanted, was to meet other people who were on the same type of journey as me, because truth is, this journey is very hard. Growth is very hard. So it helps to know that you're not alone, that people go through the same as you, to learn what other people did to better themselves, because, there's never one way to grow. Before I started this journey, I had to tackle my insecurities. I knew I wanted to talk. I knew I wanted to be influential for a very long time. I knew that was something that was a desire and a dream of mine, but I didn't really become aware that a podcast was something that I would want until 2 years ago. When starting this podcast, I had to get over insecurities that I was unable to allow myself to see that I was insecure about. Like, a lot of the insecurities, like, I got over the insecurities that I knew were insecurities, but I had to work to get over insecurities that I wasn't truthful with myself about being insecurities, like the ones that I really just didn't want to accept or push to the side, which for me was talking. Ironic, right? I had a big insecurity surrounding talking. My biggest insecurity was talking too much, and I never vocalized this to anybody, just because, I knew I talked a lot, but I couldn't help it. I knew that I had a lot to say, I had a lot to share, and a lot of wisdom that I wanted to give out, but I was insecure in not being perceived the way that I wanted to be perceived. I was insecure in not being accepted by others or being seen as weird. I was insecure in being told that I talk too much. I was insecure in being heard, right? I was just so insecure with what came after speaking. And how am I supposed to have a podcast if I can't talk? How am I supposed to have a podcast if I'm scared and care about what people think about what I have to say? What is so important about insecurity is the hold that insecurity has on you and your life. You being unable to label your insecurities creates a illusion in your life. Everything you do is a lie. Everything you do is in hopes of aiding and counteracting that insecurity that no one really knows about. So now you're doing things and performing things under the impression that you are fine and you are whole in those areas, all while trying to convince to yourself that you are fine and that you are whole in those areas, which only means that the work that you are putting into those areas is fraudulent. You're not acting authentically. You're not working authentically. If you are painting a painting and you think throughout that painting that it's ugly, you're going to paint an ugly painting. Your end result will be ugly because your mindset told you it was ugly the whole time, whether or not someone was on the other side of you watching you paint, telling you that it was beautiful. For me, insecurity is a lack. It's a feeling of desperation. Insecurity is feeling like something needs to be different despite it already being one way, right? And usually insecurities stem from things that we cannot change, the color of our skin, the people that we are, our interests, and your inability to accept yourself for what you are leads to that feeling of inadequacy. And that feeling of inadequacy leads to the feeling of lack, because now you're only yearning for what you feel you don't have. So if I am fat and I don't want to accept that I'm fat, all while believing that I'm fat, and all while not wanting others to believe I'm fat, I take everything that people do that remind me that I am fat personally, whether it was intended or not. So now I'm constantly reacting to things that I shouldn't react to. I'm constantly paying attention to things that should not be harboring my attention. For example, say I have a job interview. If I have a job interview and I'm worried about looking fat, my thoughts are not on how I can best present myself at this job interview. My thoughts are not on my best qualities. My thoughts are on what uniform or what professional outfit can I put on that doesn't show my flaps, or that doesn't poke out my stomach, or that sucks in my fat the right way, right? And I miss out on that job opportunity because I didn't get to advocate for myself in the right way. I didn't get to pay attention to the things that needed my attention in that time, all because I was so held up on insecurities. That feeling of desperation and lack will only continue to fester within, and it begins to consume your life, right? So how does that look? How does it look when insecurity consumes your life? It looks like what everybody looks like around you. Personally, as someone who has done the work to try to become not insecure, it makes seeing people who are insecure that much more visible. Now I'm able, like I said in my last podcast, how I can see the areas where others need to grow due to me being able to see the areas where I have to grow. If you are insecure and you allow yourself to sit within that insecurity and dwell on the things that you cannot change, it only continues to push you farther from the fact of acceptance. The inability to accept insecurity leads to the inability to accept, period. And what I mean by that is you will no longer be able to see what is for you and what is not for you when you're insecure. And it sounds so confusing, but it really isn't. If you don't know your worth, how are you supposed to depict value in things? If you are worth $100, but you think you're worth $2, you will constantly give yourself to people who are of the same value without realizing that you're worth more. So for me personally, when I was insecure about my looks, I constantly found myself dealing with men who just treated me like crap, like straight crap. I'm talking men who did not value my time. I'm talking men who just did not value anything I had to say. I found myself arguing to be heard, wanting to be listened to and understood without listening and understanding myself. Because truth is, if I wasn't insecure, I would have been able to see that those men never treated me of my worth and of my value. Now that I value myself and I love myself, I have the ability to easily turn down men that do not, like I can easily spot a man that is not of my worth and not of my value today compared to how I did back then. Back then, I was so insecure that talking to a man who I deemed attractive was a win. Like whether he was nice or not, it was a win. I found so much joy. Like I remember the first guy that I talked to, I legit was ecstatic, right? And he probably like knows this. He probably sits and honestly, not probably, he does. I sit and I look at this man today and like on any interaction that I've had with him outside of like when I talked with him, I can see the lack of value. I can see the lack of respect. He still doesn't value me. He still doesn't respect me like how he should, right? And that's because I already opened that portal with him. When you are insecure and you deal with people who are also insecure, it's all a battle of insecurity. It's a battle of who is less insecure, who can make me feel less insecure. I was unable to see how that man had not a lick of value for me. And I was also unable to see how he was so insecure, right? Like, I also was unable to see how I attracted other insecure individuals into my life. And that's because it's all because I lacked self-love. I didn't realize how every interaction that I had with others was in search for that fulfillment, was in search for that love. But how can I search for that love authentically if I don't know what that love looks like? It's like braiding hair, right? It takes learning braiding your own hair to be able to braid somebody else's hair. If I don't practice that skill in myself, I will not be able to do that for others. If I am unable to love myself, I am unable to love others, or at least you can't love them the right way. I look back and I've a lot of my actions when I was insecure were out of fear. And I say that as in I loved my friends, and I authentically have always loved my friends. That is something that no one will ever take away from me. However, the difference between how I love my friends now and how I loved my friends then is that I love my friends with the acceptance that, with the understanding that my friends love me for me because they see me in my entirety and they accept that and they love that. And if they are unable to accept any part of me, then they don't need to be a part of me. Whereas before, I would have done anything to make sure I didn't lose my relationships. I would have done anything. Everything that I did was to maintain all of the relationships in my life. Matter of fact, another insecurity that I had was, like I said, I didn't want to be misunderstood as far as what I said. I also didn't want to be misunderstood as far as like who I was. And that was a big insecurity. And it sounds like something that you couldn't really be insecure about, or it does, but I think it's an insecurity that not a lot of people pay attention to. I was so scared of being misunderstood. And I had to get over that before I started this podcast, because truth is, everyone is entitled to their own perception. Everyone is entitled to how they view things, how they take things, how they accept things, how they give things. And that's just their right. The same way I have that right. So if I love a certain way, I shouldn't change how I love just to be accepted and just to be kept and wanted by my friends. I should be wanted and accepted and kept by my friends because they want and love and accept and value me as I am, as I come. And the same goes for love. A lot of people search for love and want people who will accept their flaws, all while being unable to accept those flaws. If I want a man for so long, right? I always told myself, I will never date a man that doesn't like, okay, not even that. I told myself I want to stay fat. And although, look, I love being a big girl, I will never change that about me. Like, even if I get small, I will forever love who I was as a big woman. And I'm glad that I learned to love that side of myself, because regardless of whatever side of the spectrum that I'm on, I will forever love me. Whether I'm big or whether I'm small, I will love me. Before I authentically loved myself as a plus size woman, I always said, I want a man who will love me fat. I want to meet my man fat. I'm not going to get skinny. I'm not going to work on my health. I'm not going to lose my weight. I'm not going to do anything towards my weight until a man loves me as I am, right? And I wanted that so desperately. I felt like that was my birthright. Like, none of these men deserve me. No man deserves to step foot in my face if he can't love me as I am. And that's true. However, it was never going to come because I didn't love me as I was. I wanted so desperately for someone to love me and accept me as a big woman so that I could feel validated in being a big woman, so that I didn't feel wrong in choosing to love myself as I was. But truth is, I should have just loved myself, because in being able to love myself, I have been able to find men who like me as I am. I wanted a man to like me as I was so bad, but continuously found myself dealing with men who were insecure, messing with a big woman, who wanted a big woman, obviously, because they were messing with me, but were insecure about it. Hence why they could never tell their friends about me. They could never make me their girlfriend. They were embarrassed taking me home to their family because they may have liked a big girl, but they knew mama would have went on their fat girlfriend, or they knew their family would not have accepted their fat girlfriend. Or I've messed with men who openly spoke to me about liking dark-skinned girls, all while following all white girls or all light-skinned girls. My inability to be truthful with myself and my insecurities allowed for me to be untruthful about why these men were messing with me, or about the nature of my relationship with these men, because I lied to myself about why they messed with me the same way I was lying to myself about loving myself, the same way I was lying to myself about saying that I deserved a good man. I wanted to believe so desperately, so badly, that I deserved a man who loved me as I was, but I didn't love me as I was. And because of that, as much as I wanted it, as much as I believed it, as much as I stood on it, I would never find it, because I didn't know how to look for it. I didn't know what it looked like to have a man who truly valued me and truly loved me as I was, because I don't know what that looks like, because I never did it to myself. I never valued myself. I never loved myself. I never told myself I was beautiful. I never told myself that, or at least I did, but I never believed it. I didn't believe that I could be valued in being a big girl. And that's why the power of self-love is so important. In learning to love myself and valuing myself, and not even just loving myself, but in learning to see myself for what I really am, there's no, whether I love it or not, that's at least the first step. There's no lying to yourself in that. If I see what I am and I trust that, it's made it basically, in learning to love myself, I've gotten rid of a lot of delusions. Now, I am still working on that, because it's so easy to fall back into those delusions. I'm still human. I'm still a woman. And these are parts of all people, right? But as far as me being a woman and being emotional, and me being young and being, lacking knowledge and still figuring myself out and still building my relationships, I still suffer from delusions and suffer from being overly trusting and all these things which stem from fear. But in being able to love myself, it's opened new doors for me that I knew existed, but I couldn't find. And truth is, it was because of judgment. Before we even get into self-love, let's just jump all the way to judgment, right? Judgment is insecurity. I need for you guys to understand that today. If you judge others, you're insecure. No matter how much you think you're secure, you're insecure. Because all judgment is asserting dominance over somebody else due to something you deem lacking in within them. I had to learn that anytime I judged somebody else, it meant I judged myself still. If I look at someone and I say, ooh, that's weird. And I'm not talking about somebody murders somebody and you're I'm talking you see someone who's authentically just happy and within themselves, and because it's different from you, it's something you're not used to, you judge that. You deem them uncool, unfit, weird. All that shows is that there's things in within yourself you deem weird. There's things in within yourself you deem uncool. There's things in within yourself you deem ugly. Because you cannot point out ugly without knowing ugly. I had to learn how to not judge. The ability to see someone foreign to you and not judge them means the ability to accept all. And what I mean by all is like everything. If you can accept differences in others, changes and things foreign in others, you can accept those things in within yourself. And it lowers insecurity. I worked hard to work on my insecurities, but still found myself being insecure. But it wasn't until I started catching myself whenever I was being judgmental. And I mean like randomly judgmental. Like if I see somebody like walking in the street, I'm like, oh, why she look like that? That is wrong. Like all that is me saying I look better. You know what I mean? Whether I outwardly said that or not, judging somebody else puts you in a place of being better. And truth is, nobody is better, especially if somebody is choosing to do something because it makes them happy. If anything, they're better. Truth is, because I think living authentically in your truth, despite what others think of you, is the highest form of power. Letting go of judgment is letting go of insecurity. And that's one way to work towards. Let's talk about where insecurity comes from. Truth is, to start the process of getting over insecurity, you must know where that insecurity comes from. You must understand the root. And that's the process that usually is painful, because it's usually stems from something so small that you didn't really have great understanding of at the time when you experienced it. And it caused you a great deal of pain at that time. And no one wants to relive that pain. But truth is, going back to that place of where that insecurity harbored, where that insecurity stemmed from, will allow you to really elaborate on that experience and understand that maybe you misunderstood what happened at the time, or your perception of things allowed for you to harbor an insecurity that wasn't even necessary, or it comes from society, and society like isn't real. Like it's real, but it's not real. It's a social construct, just like everything is. None of it is real. You can accept and take whatever it is you want. The same way you get to choose, I want to be a liberal. You chose that, you stood on that, and you stand on that, and you will never be caught dead being a conservative, or vice versa. Is the same way you can choose that I am from today forward going to believe that being big is not a problem. When you're insecure, insecurity can only take you to unwanted places. And what I mean by that is you may want them, but like you don't really want them. For example, people fail to see how when you're insecure, your entire life is surrounded by that insecurity. Your friend groups, your jobs, everything. If you're insecure, you put a cap on anything. If I'm insecure about being accepted, I feel like I'm always ostracized. I feel like I want to be accepted. I will work so hard to find friends that I see and visualize and deem accepted and wanted and loved, to put myself in that place without realizing that the only reason I see that and value that within those people is because they are insecure about the same insecurity. They are fighting towards the same goal. And now you're in a friend group of bitches who are all insecure because they all want to be seen as it girl. And now you're all working to be it girl and all living in the illusion that you're it girl. Same goes for a relationship. If you're insecure about how you look and you want to find someone that will love you how you look, you will find someone who's also insecure about how they look and want someone that will love them how they look. And as much as you can provide reassurance is not security. Reassurance is only temporary security. It doesn't last, nor is it even real, because if you don't feel that within, you're only lying. Again, you're only adding to the delusion. So now you're in a relationship with someone who's insecure, and not only that, but insecurity is unattractive. Nobody is attracted to insecurity. Do you want to be friends with somebody who openly says like, oh my gosh, I'm weird and no one likes me and this, that, and the third. No. Truth is, you're gonna pull yourself away from that person. The same way nobody, eventually, after time, you will fall out of love with someone if they constantly are spewing that they are not beautiful, if they're constantly spewing that they're not worthy of being in a relationship, they're not worthy of being loved or having a partner, they don't know how to love. The insecurity you will speak your insecurity and project your insecurity onto others because of your inability to accept that insecurity. You'll project it. Projection? No. Projection is a lie. Projection is the devil. Rid yourself of that shit. Stop projecting your insecurities onto other people. You need to start realizing how the things you say, the things you do are a reflection of the things you feel within the inside. If you feel positive within, if you are happy within, you are content within, you spew positivity. You spew enlightened things, you spew wise words. But if you are insecure, you spew fear, you spew negativity, you seek negativity, you search for that. And it leads to a cycle of just being deeper and deeper within insecurity, because insecurity is like one of those things. It's like a drug, right? Like anything is. It's an addiction. You can become addicted to insecurity because you feel like the reassurance that you get and you feel like the work that you do to counteract your insecurities is enough to rid yourself of these insecurities. And because it provides this temporary aid, you continue to seek that, which only makes you continue to go in the opposite direction and further guides you towards delusion. Now, there's many forms of insecurity, right? And what I mean by that is, like I said earlier, I got over insecurity as far as my looks, but there's insecurity, there's financial insecurity, which usually is depicted by men because we live in a society where they're supposed to have money. There is talking insecurity, like I said, where you just don't want to be misunderstood or you want to be heard. I failed to realize how my insecurity of talking stemmed from my inability of listening. I had an inability of listening when I was younger, and I constantly wanted to be heard and understood. And although I can sit and say that, yes, people should have listened, the adults in my life or whoever was there to shape my understanding of my vulnerability and my emotional expression, those adults were supposed to be the ones who made me feel heard. Although, yes, that is true. It is also true that I had an inability to listen, and my constant desire to be heard led to me being constantly shushed. And that created an insecurity in me of thinking that people didn't value what I had to say, all while feeling and knowing that people valued what I had to say, because like I said, I've always been someone who vocalized myself. I'm a very talkative girl, and I'm not ashamed of that anymore, like how I used to be. And for all my people who talk a lot, don't be ashamed. Go find your other fellow friends who talk a lot so y'all can just overtalk one another, because when you're both doing it, don't nobody care. Because I looked back within to figure out where that insecurity stemmed from, I was able to see how it was a lack of something that I needed, which was being able to listen and work on that, while also being able to understand that that was never intended. Like, it was never intended by my parents or my teachers or my siblings or any figure that I looked up to make me feel invalidated. It was never their intention. Their intention was to help me. Their intention was to guide me and to protect me. But I misconstrued and misunderstood and allowed for an insecurity to harbor within me for years. For years and years and years, that insecurity dictated a lot of my life and consumed me. But it may have been hard to look back and understand that. It may have been hard to understand, damn, maybe I needed to learn how to listen. But that helped me in so many other areas. Now, because I knew that I lacked the ability to listen, I looked back on many situations that I had where I felt like I was right and I saw where I was wrong. And it's also very important to know that two things can be true at one time. Like, I feel like that's a lot of things with politics. A lot of things with politics is that two things are true at the same time, but y'all put them on two opposite ends of the spectrum. And now we just got to fight and choose to pick one. And it doesn't make any sense. But two things can be true at the same time. So as we wrap up this podcast, I just wanted to give some steps that I thought were important to take in regards to conquering insecurity. And so step number 1 is working on being judgmental. And in that, I mean to yourself and to others. Start with others, because what I did was I started with myself, and then I wasn't able to understand why I still had certain habits and certain issues, and it led me down this rabbit hole of trying to understand what is going on. And it was me judging others meant I still judged myself. I just wasn't being honest about how I judged myself, or I just didn't see how I judged myself. But start off first with working on how you judge others. And it's as small as like catching yourself when you say something or when you think something, or teaching yourself that just because you've been taught that this is weird or this is wrong or this is like just whatever, just always tell yourself, if that person is living authentically and it's not bothering me, it's not hurting me, then I shouldn't feel this way about it. I shouldn't be hating. I'm being a hater. And it's okay to call yourself a hater. It's okay to call yourself out on being a hater. I had to call myself out on being a fucking hater. As much as I'm a lover and I care about people so much, I was still a hater because I was hating on people that even I felt like wronged me. I was sitting there like, look at her. She did this and this to me, but she pretending like she's this and this. But what does that do for me? That doesn't do anything for me in telling myself that she's pretending to be somebody that she's not. That don't help me. That don't make me any better. It doesn't help me grow. And in fact, it probably takes me further from that, because I'm judging her for that. But there's probably so many things that I'm projecting and aren't really true. So work on your judgment. Step number 2, work on taking things personally. The same way I spoke on how I misunderstood what those in my life were trying to do for me back then, which led to an insecurity that didn't even make any sense and that only hindered my beauty and hindered my gift. I was able to accept a lot in my life and accept a lot of my wrongdoings and, take accountability. And accountability is freeing. Although hard, it is very freeing. And so work on taking things personally. Really look at why people do and say the things they do and understand that it is all because of them. Like I said, everything you do is you motivated. You gave that homeless person $1 because you wanted to feel like you were a good person inside. Yes, you wanted to help them, but you also wanted to feel like you're a good person inside. You checked up on your friends. Yeah, you love your friends and you want to be there for them, but you also want to feel like you're a good friend. You don't want to live with the uncertainty of feeling like you lacked in that area. So everything we do is self-motivated. So understand that in your peers. Understand that when they project, when they say things to you, when they do things that might hurt you, there's probably an underlying reason that ties back to them that you don't understand, that they didn't want to say. I think that's something that I have worked on and will have to continue to work on, because, for example, like when I had my TikTok and my little video went viral to the white girls and they were all mad, I didn't take it personally, but there were times where it was like I found myself, I didn't take it personally when people said, oh, you are N-word, or you are fat, or whatever, because like I know I'm black, baby, I don't care. I know I'm fat, baby, and again, I don't care. Like, but when people said things like, oh, you have rolls on your neck, or when people said things like, ew, look at her armpit, like started paying attention to small things that I didn't even realize or I didn't take issue with. It created like a lack of certainty within myself. I started to be like, damn, like, should I be worried about my armpit? Like, I didn't know people was looking at my armpit. Now I gotta cover my armpits every time I record a video because I didn't know people was checking out my armpits. They all going on my armpits, but Hoti, no one is paying attention to that. It was because I made her feel insecure. She wanted to make me feel insecure. And if I wasn't insecure and I had no room for insecurity within me, I would not have been affected by any of those comments, right? So learn to not take things personally. Be open to critique. Learn to look for the truths in the bad things people say about you. It sounds so hard, but when you can accept the truths in the bad things that people say about you, you can change them. But you can't change anything bad about you if you're unable to see that it's there. If you constantly lie to yourself about who you are as a person. And the last thing I say to do is work on accepting things that are foreign to you, because sometimes it makes us feel better in judging things that we don't understand. Hence, like, people judging cultures they don't understand. Like, I remember when it was the trend showing Filipino people eating the ducks out of or chickens, the little baby chicks or the baby ducks out of the eggs and the embryos, and everyone was going on it. And as an African woman, I couldn't judge that because I done seen my mama eat a cricket. So, and as an American, like born in America, I judged that because it was foreign to me. But when I went to Tanzania, I completely understood that it's just a completely different world, and that's not for me to judge. The same way, and I was able to understand that Americans have a one-story view of Africa the same way Africans have a one-story, or everybody foreign to America has a one-story view of America. So work on accepting things that are foreign to you. You being able to accept things that are foreign to you allows you to accept the things that are you, that you don't want to be true. So that's all I have to say for today. Thank you so much. Love always. Bye.